little bit of like silliness, some warm-ups, some really grounded energy. I think I'm right at home.
You are listening to the Brain Profits Podcast. We bring awareness to the reality that, in large, people allow their brains to control them, which is causing difficulty at school, at work, and in life.
Success in life and business starts in the brain. Therefore, we want to explore the challenges that exist for people and organizations so that they are in control of their brains and not the other way around.
Listen in, be inspired, and take back control of your brain, and you'll create optimal results in your life, organization, and community.
Ready to start the show? We are, so let's go. You guys are listening to another episode of The Brain Profits. I'm Doug Mapp, cognitive development professional and entrepreneur. I'm here with, of course, my lovely co-hosts. They're over there this time, over there, right? Stacy, what's going on?
Oh, lovely. I thought you were talking about Philippe on that one, but I'll take it. I am the lovely Mrs. Stacy Busby, executive coach and also business owner and entrepreneur, co-owner of a working farm that's making some beautiful fresh pasta and living life as a mama and East Tennessean. And we're also here with Dr.
I am Dr. Philippe Dion, board certified neurologist, author of the book Neuroplasticity, Your Brain's Superpower, author of the ebook Change Your Brain, Change Your Life, creator of the online course Take Charge of Your Brain. And we have an awesome guest with us today. But before I introduce her, Stacy, Doug and I yesterday did a little recording, just the two of us.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I learned so much about Doug. This entire time, I literally thought he was your assistant. Did you know that he is a cognitive expert? Did you know that? I didn't know he was a cognitive expert.
Wow. There had been some like passing conversations about it, and but that's amazing. That's amazing. What is a cognitive development professional? What'd you learn?
What did I learn?
Oh, yeah.
I learned we need a new expert.
Oh man. Good. Those guys are flowers. This is our podcast. I don't know who said, let's do the podcast.
Well,
we had a good time, but we definitely missed you. So it's good to have you back. It's good to see you.
Yeah. I'm going to answer the question before I'm not going to let you scapegoat it like that without answering the question.
Right, go ahead. Answer the question.
The professional does. So we help people, right, strengthen their cognitive function skills. And so we don't do a lot of explaining what their skills are. We measure them at first. And then after that, we put a plan in action to get their skills to, level up, right? So the skills can be like attention, memory, processing speed, long-term memory, I should say working memory at the beginning, fluid reasoning, executive functioning stuff. So all the things that it takes to learn and perform and to do great. The basis of doing great is where we start, right? Foundational stuff. Then after we're done with that, we kick it over to other professionals like you and Stacy that can then take them to the next level with how they can reason through things with their newfound strength in brain power. So anyways, that's what it is to be a cognitive development professional.
Well, I love it. And there's a beautiful segue into as you're talking about handing off to other professionals or the support of lots of other professionals. There are so many folks out there that are doing good work that helps us build into our strengths, grow our strengths. And, Philippe, you've sent us an article, and I remember going through quite a bit of this in my previous profession about multiple intelligences and really being able to lean into that. And one of them is music, isn't it? Isn't there an art or music intelligence?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
What's the what?
I said bust the flow.
Well, when you were talking about cognitive skills, actually the guest we have on today also does a lot of cognitive work, whether she realizes it or not. Because in neurology, one of the ways that we help people who have an aphasia, an inability to either express language or to understand language, is through music. And we've got a musician today. We've got an artist today. We've got a phenomenal singer today. She posted a video of her singing, I believe it was yesterday, on Instagram, and I was just like, oh my God, that voice is incredible. So today we have Demi with us. So if you would go ahead and introduce yourself, that would be awesome.
Yes. Hi. Again, thank you for having me on the Profits podcast. I appreciate it. My name is Demi Dabady. I am a singer, a songwriter, speaker, and lyricist, because sometimes I infuse a little bit of rap in my artistry. And I just recently started a podcast at the top of this year by the name of Hustlers and Hermits, which is on all streaming platforms. And the basis behind it is really just being intentional about going after what it is that you desire, but also creating time for self-care and self-preservation and reflection. And so I think being a New Yorker by nature, we've always have had to juggle the ongoing pounding the pavement, concrete jungle type of vibe. And, I'm at the point where I think I just want to retire a little bit from that and really be intentional about how I care for myself on a daily basis so that I don't have too much cortisol just releasing itself in my system. But that's it in a nutshell. My background is in education. So as you all sort of like share some of your takes and background information and articles, there's so much that sparks inside of my mind because I have been responsible for the education of young people. And so that's kind of it in a nutshell. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, let me tell you what makes me proud. Not only is she a New Yorker, but just like me, she is also Haitian. So it makes me really proud to see all the incredible work that you are doing.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. Thank you. And you as well. You as well.
Thank you. Thank you. So what got you into music?
I think it's one of those things that kind of happened by default. It sounds a little cliche-ish, but I started in the choir at church and didn't even realize that I wanted to sing and didn't even realize that I had a quote unquote voice until the choir director literally just gave me a lead and was just like, you're going to sing this. And so by default, you get put on the spot. And from that point on, it's just expansion from there. But I knew I had a love of music because while children were playing outside, I would be in my room, literally with a deodorant stick. And I'd line up all my teddy bears and I'd just talk to them, right? I don't tell anyone, but I would talk to them and I'd say, all right, what song do you want to hear? And I would perform for them. And I would do this hour after hour and I would take my mom's heels and I'd put on her lipstick. And that's when I knew, like, okay, you know what? You kind of got a love for music on another level. So I've always enjoyed singing and writing poetry, and the poetry turned into songs. And so I've always written my own songs and, got into talent shows and performing. When I was in college, I interned at Sony Music. And so that was a really great experience. And I was able to sort of feature on a couple of things and see the behind the scenes of the music industry. But I would say that was like the entryway, which was, hey, we're going to put you on the spot. Can you sing this song? And then from then on, it was just kind of nurturing the gift without even realizing that I was doing that. Yeah.
Okay, that's cool. So I got to ask this question before I ask my next one, which is going to be a more serious to the tone of the podcast. But all right, so your name, Demi Dabady. How'd you get that name?
Demi, right? It stands for Dad's Energy, Mother's Innocence. And Dabady is actually my family name. So if you know a couple Haitians, their name is Dabady, And yeah, I just found the significance behind that because my dad is very much the hustler type, to be quite honest with you. He's about his business. And my mom is very sort of low key and laid back. And she's okay with just being an introvert and like, I'm good. And I find that I do sort of rest right in the center of that. And yeah, that's
cool. That's a really cool name. I'm glad that I asked that question because at first, with that type of a last name or saying it that way, the baddie, people might think you're feeling a lot of yourself on that one. So, but that's cool. That's a natural, real name.
Yeah. And if you're like the Haitians say Dabady, so it's you hear that accent, then like, oh, okay, that's nothing. But when I perform, people assume that I'm saying like the baddie, and I'm like, that's so not me. I'm so not like that's like I'm not like, hey, look at me. That's not my vibe. I'm way more shyer than I.
No, it could be the persona. The persona, the stage person is different than the real person, and then
absolutely.
Yeah, no, that's cool. All right, well, here's my back to the show question. So our show is about bringing the awareness of at large, right? Issues that we may see in the world and why we kind of came into this to help others, right? So what problem were you seeing that you wanted to try to help solve?
I'm going to bring it back to education because that's, again, my background, and having worked in early elementary to high school, I've seen a lot. I've seen a vast majority of students just struggle with their education. And I'm fully aware that there are multiple learners at different levels. Like, I get that. The problem for me has always been that, particularly in the US, education has been approached in one way, and it's been very math and ELA and standardized testing. And if you sort of don't fit into that pocket, then there's a lack of your ability to be creative and expressive. The same also falls on teachers because we're given a curriculum and a structure to follow. And as much as I can, I'm gonna infuse a lot of music and creativity in the classroom when I can, but I think that that's the missing component. So the problem that I felt is that, one, just because you're in a particular grade doesn't necessarily mean you're at grade level, and it doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting the support at home, right? And the problem is the assumption that there's a parent sitting at the table with you saying, 2 + 2 = 4, and that's not really it, right? Homes are so unique and family structures are so unique, particularly now, that there's a frustration around education. And so I feel that when you do add mnemonic devices into the classroom and that's infused and students are able to sort of memorize something based on the rhythm that's associated with it. Or I guess for multiplications, for instance, as a throwback, I learned it very sort of structured and memorized. But a lot of students can't really process it that way. And so again, just being able to add some sort of creativity. Before testing, I would play music. Ironically, my students do not know that I sing. I don't bring that at all into the classroom. I don't bring any of it. They don't have any social media of mine or whatever. Like, I just want to be present as their teacher. But I still will play music. I would still relate references to hip hop and tell them how that's tied to sort of ELA and language arts and social studies and that kind of thing. But the problem is assuming that, again, students are at grade level. The problem is assuming that all students learn the same. The problem is assuming that there are not multiple structures to learning processes. And I think that's where we have failed, to be quite honest with you. And so having been in education for a long time, definitely feels like we need to sort of break down and rebuild in other ways. And sadly, a lot of funding does not go towards creative arts and music.
Real fast, what's ELA stand for?
Oh, English language arts. Yeah.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
What about, so because you mentioned that, I thought that sometimes there's a heavy focus on STEM these days, which I feel like is a disservice to people to push it to the degree that I feel like it's being pushed. But anyways,
yeah.
What about how, what did you see, I guess, in the translation from adding music to the classroom? How did you see that, like, making the kids or getting kids to perform at better levels or high levels?
Well, to be quite honest with you, you're not teaching anyone if you're not connecting with them, right? Connection equals teaching, right? And music brings on feelings, it brings on emotions in whatever capacity, however that student relates to it. But what I do know is a light bulb goes on. So maybe you're not going to be the top excelling student, but you'll actually be engaged in the lesson. You'll actually take away what needs to be taken away from that particular unit, from that particular section of whatever it is that we're working on. And I think that's a gain. And so, when we do this testing and we review the data behind the testing, we obviously know that we're like, oh, several students are really high. They're testing and they're doing really well. However, there's some that are showing growth, and I don't think growth is celebrated enough. But I think, again, when music and creativity is infused in any capacity, it just sort of allows the student to engage. There's a website that we go to, Flowcabulary. There it is, Flowcabulary. I'm not sure if there are any educators that are listening, and I'm sure educators have heard of it, but it's literally Flow, F-L-O, Cabulary. And they take so many things that are going on in the world, including all subjects, and they infuse it into a rhyme. So if you are learning the parts of speech, they'll infuse that into a rhyme and a rhythm behind it. If it's about science, they'll go ahead and speak about, let's just say, the periodic table and make that engaging. You will be surprised how many students literally stop, drop, and roll and like, oh my goodness, I just took this information in. And so when it's time for them to apply it to an assessment, or show proof that they understand it, they can, because it's retained. Now, you guys are the brain prophets, so I don't know the full spectrum behind it. I just, know that there are definitely some circuitry that lights up, that says, hi, I'm present, I'm engaged. Give me more of this. This feels good. And that's what I think we are missing. I don't see why, specifically in education, there's not an emphasis on how students feel and how they're showing up emotionally, how that impacts their education. There's no way that you're hungry and that you're going to learn. There's no way that you're disengaged and that you're going to learn. There's no way that you don't feel connected and that you're going to learn. Like, I think those two go hand in hand. So it feels very much needed. And that's where I see that it's been beneficial.
Yeah. One more question before I turn it over to Stacy or somebody else. How have you seen the challenges in school with the kids, right, translate to people that you interact with in adulthood?
Can you rephrase that a little bit? Are you saying, how do I see them progress?
When you see these challenges that are, as you would say, right, this disconnection that you're seeing with these kids, right? How are you seeing that you kind of like, go through people as they're, getting older and older, right? So as you deal with adults, I'm sure you're seeing it, well, I'm not sure. I'm asking it, are you seeing that same challenge in the adults or in the kids as they're even getting older, right? So are you seeing those same challenges with people or adult people?
You know what? You do bring up a good point, because sometimes the trajectory, unfortunately, is written, and I'm going to say written in quotes, because I know that we have the capability of changing and mending quite a few things, including our structural DNAs, right? As I dive deep. But I do know, for instance, if I had a child in 4th grade, which I've seen and I've had, and they're currently now an 8th grader, some of the learning struggles continue to exist. Some of the ability to express themselves continue to exist. Some of the challenges with communication continue to exist. And what does that say? It doesn't necessarily mean the method or the strategy and the implementation has been wrong. It just means that, like, the follow-up has not continued. So if I continue to plant that seed and water it while you're in that 7-hour period, Monday through Friday, that's cool. But then there's also another rewiring that happens when you're no longer in my space, when you're no longer in that classroom. But I do feel that whatever's not addressed in their early adolescence, it's definitely transferred to their adulthood. Again, inability to communicate, to express themselves, to maintain composure, to take a moment for a second and sort of think from another perspective. These are really important skills. And the language of do good in school, get a good job, buy a house or whatever, like that script is dead. It's not, in my opinion, it's not even beneficial to our real-time learners in this current world, society. I hope I'm answering the question correctly, but I do know that, if you meet a 30-year-old who's struggling with a few things, I'm sure you can trace that to something that was present in their early childhood. I don't think there's a big shocker there. I just don't think we recognize that. And I'm going to say specifically in the education system, I don't think we recognize it to the point of creating some fixes and creating systems. And as you mentioned, STEAM is great. Yeah, I get it. But what if I'm not a science and math learner? What if I'm not even wired in that direction? I just want to pass the class, but really I'm in the creative arts and I find myself there and grounded in that space. Do I get left to the side because the world is advancing, behind STEAM? So fair questions, great discussion. Again, I'm with the tear it down, build it back up.
Yeah. And thanks for restating it. I said STEM earlier, and I forgot that they changed it to STEAM now.
Yeah.
To add that A.
That art. Right.
Yeah. So, anyways, all right.
Hey, Philippe, take us into the neuroverse on music's effects on the brain. What happens when we listen to music? Because I know Little Einsteins makes a ton of money based on the knowledge of classical music. There's baby stuff out there all over the place, classical music. I listen to either classical music or techno music, and the rhythmic beat of all of that keeps me focused when I'm doing work that I don't like to do. So let's go into the neuroverse. What's actually happening inside this noggin when music?
We're going to come back to the fact that she listens to techno music.
I know, shock ya.
Well, the thought on classical music is actually changing, right? So now what we know is that it really depends on your music preference. Like I mean, I might age myself a little bit here, but I am a R&B baby. Like you put on some 90s R&B, oh my God, dude, I'm like in a great mood. My body is just swaying. Shoot, I'll go back to my prepubescent voice and start singing those high notes from Boys to Men. Like, I am just in a great place. And so it's
Can
not
you do
just
it right now? Wait, stop right now.
Yeah,
I
let's-
said,
yeah.
Demi to sing, but
I
can you
said
just do it?
prepubescent. And don't forget, Doug was the one who warmed up his vocal cords. So if you want to, maybe we should listen to Doug sing.
I'll start you
Yeah.
off. Like I'm totally going there. All the joys of that time. Okay.
Yeah,
good.
you
Sorry.
know. But the reality is that music does something to our brains that nothing else does. Music lights up every single aspect of our brain, right? I mean, you'll put on some music that somebody likes, and without even being conscious of it, they'll start moving. So they're activating all the parts of their brains that are responsible for their movement and their coordination. And in fact, one of the stories that I always love telling, I mean, this relates to alcohol and music, but I was at a lounge once, and this woman has got like a drink in her hand, and she's maintaining a really nice two-step to whatever the song is that's playing. And all of a sudden she takes a couple of sips of that drink, and that two-step gets real clumsy, right? And the neuro nerd in me is like, oh, there goes her cerebellum, right? Because music lights up our cerebellum, right? Music lights up our putamen, which plays a role in our movement. Music can either increase the sensitivity in our amygdala, which is responsible for fear, or it can decrease it, right? So it can cause us to kind of relax, or depending, if you're listening to that techno, maybe it's going to stress you out a little bit more. I don't know. It depends on your preference, right?
Yeah, that's why they put the soundtracks the way they do them in, or at least the sound score in movie tracks the way they do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
And even
totally
in the
changes
stores,
the effect of what's happening based on
Yeah.
the music that's happening in the background.
yeah, even in the stores, right? I mean, they play certain music to keep us in there longer so that way we'll shop more. Music is
Yes.
influencing every aspect of our brains, every aspect of our lives. And the fact that there is not the kind of focus that there should be in our school system on the arts, I think is incredibly disappointing, right? People don't realize the benefits that the arts have, right? It's going to be so much easier for somebody to learn something in the context of art and music than trying to teach them a fact about science, right? Our brains, they don't respond to facts all that well, but they respond to stories really well. And music often tells a story, and a beautiful story, right? So, like I said, music lights up every aspect of our brains.
Oh yeah, the mood that's coming off of you, Philippe, seems like you want to start doing like a Disney musical right now, brother.
No, listen, I started getting some of that 90s R&B sort of soundtrack in my head. And
He mentioned Boys to Men, and everything lit up inside of him.
That's right.
I can see him doing the dances right now.
like
he wears that vest and everything too all the
End of the
time.
Road.
Like that vest.
Listen. And music gets stuck in our head, right? A really great beat gets stuck in our head. Like Demi, I think you put out a song last year. Man, I had that beat stuck in my head for what seemed like weeks, right?
There's a reason they say that, Philippe.
Why is that?
They say that it's because your brain cannot solve what should happen next. So as you're hearing the sound, your brain's supposed to go like, oh, this should happen next. And so something that's unexpected happens. And so now your brain's like, no, that shouldn't happen. So it keeps trying to fix what is already there.
Maybe, but I was just like, man, that song is stuck in my head. I love that beat. I love that song, and it was just like playing on loop in my head for weeks.
We gotta get a little.
Listen, it's her song. If she wants to play, she can play it.
We have to throw it in. We may throw it in the show.
So
what was it, Demi?
I don't know. It could be Heartbeat. It could be Diamonds in My Crown. I don't know.
I think the song was in Creole, or at least partly in Creole.
Oh, I see a new year.
Yes, yes,
okay.
yeah.
Did you say I see a new year? What did you say?
No.
I was playing.
It's Haitian. We are in Creole.
I told you, Demi. I told you, Demi. Doug today he just happened to say something super offensive. So
Oh, what? That's not offensive.
And
I'm West Indian too. I'm West Indian too. It's not as offensive as you think it is.
Okay. I don't know. I'll let the two of you work that out. And Demi, if you want to slander him, I'm right behind you.
This is our cognitive expert.
No,
hey, you're allowed to have fun. You're allowed to have fun in life. It's not a boring life.
I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah. Listen, he could just be aphasic. You know, he's got issues comprehending language. Sing to him, Demi. Sing to him, because that'll help.
Yeah, sing to it. Sing. Is that like totally ruining everything if we ask you to just like jump on a note here for a minute, or choose some of your lyricism? How do you say the word?
Serenading, Doug.
I mean, I'm cool. I'm cool. I like to listen to whatever you want to throw out here.
'Cause I'm just one heartbeat away. Tell you right now that I won't be pretending. Yeah, right now I'm one heartbeat away. Giving you all my love, giving you all my love, giving you all my love.
Just so you guys know, she was singing to me. That's how that went down. Good job.
I feel like send me your Cash App. I feel like I gotta pay for that.
Yes.
No.
And talk about that response, immediate physical response to it, and a desire to lean in, like, fill my soul here. That's amazing.
And for those who are watching, you can see the sunlight's hitting her, coming off the back of her window in a way that makes it seem a little angelic. So you gotta turn into the YouTube.
Oh, that's so
see it that way.
Yeah. Hey, Demi, you also were talking about how when you play it before tests or around testing and all of that, there's this relaxation that happens. And so, Philippe, correct anything that you know as incorrect about this, but as I'm looking at it, and it fits what you were saying about, well, classical music isn't the only thing. But some of this research that I'm looking at right now is saying that when you listen to music that you enjoy, there's an automatic release of dopamine. Dopamine comes from the reward center. Mm-hmm. We've talked about sex. We've talked about, other types of rewards that we like to live into that releases dopamine. And so then I followed it. Okay, cool. What does dopamine do for us? Well, Harvard Health says dopamine plays a role in learning and attention, mood, movement, heart rate, kidney function, blood vessel function, sleep, pain processing, and lactation. And so if music I'm just thinking about all of the things. Now, of course, for all of our listeners out there, I'm not saying go stop all of your medications and all of these treatments or things that you're doing, but boy, oh boy, add a little music in. And I wonder what else can happen with that. And then of course I followed that on, learning and attention. That seems to work for me for listening to music. And I'm reading here, and Philippe, correct it if it's wrong, but that sometimes inattention is linked to low dopamine levels, and raising those dopamine levels brings the attention and focus to play. So
yeah, and I think one of the things that dopamine does, it's the biggest thing dopamine does, right? Dopamine is responsible for our motivation and reward system, right? So it motivates us to engage in a behavior over and over again. How often have you heard a song and you're like, I'm going to play that right back. I'm going to play that. I did that with my sons this morning. I was taking them to school and I was like, all right, to get you guys upbeat and ready for school, let's play this song, right? We're driving, the song ends. I'm like, one more time, right? We're driving, the song ends. I'm like, one more time. And my son's like, well, clearly the last time was not one more time, right? But it's like when it gets that dopamine level up, it motivates you to do it over and over and over again.
What they want you to move it to?
They didn't want me to move it to anything. They like that song too.
Okay, because 90s R&B trying to rub up on these kids.
Well, this was the 90s R&B, but okay. But yeah.
Is there for each of you, is there one artist, if their music comes on, you're like instantly in it, like there could be nothing wrong with the world, like takes you into your joy spot?
Listen. I mean, when Demi just started to sing, that took me to a really good place. That took me to a really, really good place. So
yeah, I want to hear Demi's answer on that.
I have so many go-to, but I'd say Whitney. Yeah, I resonate a lot with Whitney. a nice surround sound of Whitney playing. And I don't know, I just like that old classic sort of singing. And yeah, I don't know. It sort of suspends things for a second.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Yeah. But that's when music had words.
Yeah.
That's when music
so
told a
I'm gonna take
story.
it back.
Because music today, some of these musicians, I'm like, damn, dude, I can be an artist.
Yeah.
You just need like 5 words in a song. That's it.
All right.
So
yeah, I wonder. So for me, I'm gonna take it back to somebody maybe it's not as popular, but it was great ballads that he created. Carl Thomas. You remember him, Carl Thomas? That guy, he could blow, he could sing. He's real, artist in the way that he, did his music. So I can think of some of his songs now. What about you, Stace?
I'll have to look him up. Carl Thomas, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So for me, two immediately come to mind. When I hear Michael Franti, I will immediately be jumping around the room and acting a fool. And if Michael Jackson, if MJ comes on in my car, you are going to catch me looking like an absolute idiot. Like I know everything about singing and life is good. And Man in the Mirror comes on, man, like it's over. It's absolutely over in my life. So it's amazing.
That's hilarious.
I feel like I can change the world when that song comes on. I may be the woman in the mirror, but I'm still on.
I feel like that's the purpose of that song, right?
Yeah. Definitely was.
It sure is.
Where can people find you?
So you can find me on Instagram at Demi Dabady. Twitter, the handle is exactly the same. No, Twitter is at Demi Dabady Music. Facebook, it's the same. It's everywhere on Spotify, Apple, iTunes. So just Demi Dabady and everything will come up.
We thank you guys for listening. Don't forget to share with your friends. Tell them about the Brain Profits. And don't forget to like and subscribe. All right. Until next time, the Brain Profits.
See you, everybody.
Go put your favorite music on.